How you doing there? Welcome back to Babble. On Talmud today we're studying Daf Yud Ches, Daf 18 of Masechta Zevachim. Friends, today's Daf, the main focus of today's Daf is going to be about Mechusar begadims, doing Kabolas Hadam. If you have a kohen who is not wearing the proper garb, the proper garments for a kohen hedget, that would be the 4 garments of a kohen hedget, and a kohen gadol, that would be the 8 garments of a kohen gadol, right? If we're talking about a kohen gadol, by the way, I'm super tired right now, so hopefully I will be coherent. Anyways, so the main sugya of today's daf is Mechusar begadims, doing Kabolas Hadam, and then along the way we'll discuss pant sizes, trouser sizes, requirements for kohanim. What if the pants, the hoizen, are too long? What if they're too short? What can you do? Is it kosher? Is it possible? And finally, clothing materials for kohanim. What were the big day kahuna made out of, friends? That and more on Daf Yud Ches of Masechta Zevachim. Friends, let's do it. Hi friends, we are going to begin on Daf Yud Zayin, Amid Beis of Masechta Zevachim. Okay, we're going to begin at the 2 dots, about 10 or 15 lines or so from the bottom of Yud Zayin Amid Beis. Mechusar begadim, a kohen who is lacking the proper garments. Minolan, how do we know that a Mechusar begadim is mechalal the avoda? Amr Babble, Amr Yechanan, Matuba Mishmei Allah's Reb Shimon, says Babble, then Reb Yochanan. Some takas say it's Reb Lazar, Reb Shimon. The Amr the pasuk says, "V'chagarta osam avnei taharin uvana v'chavashta loy migvos." That migvos. That the pasuk says that the Bnei Aharon are going to wear their special belts, are going to wear their special hats. The Hoysaloim Kahuna Lechukasolim. And then there will be kohanim. They're going to wear the proper attire, right? The Chagaitosam Avneit, the Chavashloim Migbos, they're going to wear the proper attire. Hoysaloim Kuna Lechukasolim. And they're going to be kohanim. So long as they are attiring, I feel like that's not the word I'm looking for, donning their big day kahuna samaleim, they're considered kohanim, ain't big day maleim. But if they are not wearing their proper attire, ain't kahuna samaleim, then their priestlyhood is not upon them. And if their priestlyhood is not upon them, then they are no different than any other Tom, Dick, or Harry. And as we know, right, they're basically a zar. Meaning if they're not wearing their big day kahuna, then they're not considered kohanim, they're considered zars. And we know already from 2 days ago that a zar who does avodah in the Beis HaMikdash is mechalel the avodah. So therefore, we see that the kohanim must be wearing their proper attire, because only when wearing their proper attire are they considered kohanim, and only kohanim can do the avodah. Otherwise, a zar, if they're a zar, it would be mechal. Now, the fact the Gemara, wait a minute, is the fact that Mechusar begadim is mechal the avodah. It's learned from there, from the pasuk of Vaysalem Kuna L'chukasolim. That's where it's learned out from. It's learned out from the son of learning about it. How do we know that if a kohen is fashnikit, he's drunk, that if a drunken kohen does the avodah in the Beis HaMikdash, chilel, so the avodah is profaned, it's possible. Tamloma, the pasuk says, Yayin v'shecher al teisht. Don't drink wine and intoxicants, v'gomer, and go and do the avodah. Don't do that. Ulahavdil ben hakedesh uben hachel. And the very next pasuk says, and to distinguish between that which is holy and that which is profane. So chol is mechalel right? It's the same, right? Chol is like Mechal. So we see a Shesuya Yayin, a fellow is Fashnikit, and he does the Avoda, it's possible, it's Mechulel. Mechusar begadims v'shlo rachul tzedayim v'raglayim minayin. Now, how do we know that this chilul is not limited to a kohen who's fashnikit? How do we know that this chilul applies also to a mechusar begadims, somebody who is not wearing the proper garments? How do we know it applies also to somebody who did not properly do kiddush yadayim v'raglayim, which we're going to learn about, I don't remember, tomorrow, the next day? Kiddush yadayim v'raglayim, which means that a kohen before doing avodah in the Beis Hamikdash needs to wash his hands and his feet. So how do we know that a mechusar begadim or that shelo rachutz yadayim v'raglayim, how do we know there also that they are also mechal the avodah? So the Pasuk says chuka l'gzeir shava. Well, what all three have in common, fashnikit, mechusar begadim, what they all have in common is that they have the word chuka or chok with them. And we make a gzeir shava and say that just like it's mechal by fashnikit, it's also mechal by mechusar begadim and shelo rachutz yadayim v'raglayim. Ime awesome, to which we say eino chinami. Yes, I see what you're saying. We do seem to be learning at Mechusar begadim from Fashnikit. But if it's only from there, Hava Amina and Emile Avoda Dizar Chayv Aleh Misa. Because I would have thought if we only learned out Mechusar begadim from Fashnikit, I would say that Mechusar begadim is only Mechalel the Avoda when we're talking about avodas that you'd be chayiv misa for, as the pasuk says, by Fashnikit, it says, it says, so I might think that that's specifically limited to avodas that you'd be chayiv misa for, and there are only 4 of those: Zrikas Hadam, Haktar Semurin, Nisu Chamayim, and Nisu Chayayim. So if I only had learning it out from Fashnikit, I might say that Mechusar begadim is only Mechal da Avoda if we're talking about Avodas that you'd be Chayiv Misa for. Zrikas Hadam, Aktar Semurin, Nisu Chamayim, Nisu Chayayin, that's it. How do we know all of the Avodas, including Kabolas Hadam? So for that I need the other pasuk of V'haisalem Kuna l'chukas olam, as we learned earlier, that when they're wearing their clothing, then they're considered kohanim. That applies to all avodas. So again, you may also, if from the gzeir shava, from this brisa, have a minute, I would think hanimile avoda dizar chayv alei misa. I would say that Mechusar begadim is mechalel avoda when we're talking about avodas that a zar would be chayiv misa for. Aval avoda the ein zar chayiv alei misa, but avoda that a zar would not be chayiv misa for. For example, Kabolas Hadam, he's not allowed to do Kabolas Hadam, but he wouldn't be chayiv misa. Eimelo, I would not know that Mechusar begadim would be mechal that avoda. So Kamash Malon, that's why we need the first pasuk of V'chagaita osam avnei ta'ar navana v'chavash le'migbos v'aisel l'chukas olam, because that applies to all avodas, that if a Mechusar begadim does them, then the avodah is mechul. Ashka Mechusar begadim shesuyim yaim minolan. Okay, so we learned that by Mechusar begadim, it's mechal the avodah by all of the avodas, not just Zrikas Hadam, Aktar Semurin, Nisu Chamayim, Nisu Chayayin, but all the avodas. Shesuya Yayin Minolan. How do we know that that's the case by Shesuya Yayin as well? That a kohen who's fashnikit is mechal avoda not just by avodas that you be chayiv misa for, that is already be chayiv misa for, but for all avodas, even Kabolas Hadam, for example, he would be mechal de avoda. So as chuka mi mechusar begadim. Well, we have this gezer shava of chuka from mechusar begadim. Mechusar begadim is mechal all the avodas. So we'll say, it says chuka also by fashnikit. To say that fashnikit is also mechal all of the avodas. The thing is, v'atano ulahavdil ben v'gomer konosav le mikame telekum gezer shava. V'atano mechusar begadim hu dekayalav mishasuya yain chever. If you remember the brayse, it was the other way around. Meaning, we just said, okay, mechusar begadim is mechal the avodah by all of the avodas. How do we know that Shasuya Yain is also mechal the avodah by all the avodas? Well, we'll say, well, it means Shasuya Yain, right? If Fashnikit is also mechal by all the avodas, well, we'll learn off the Gezer Shava from Mechusar begadim. The thing is, if you look at the price that we just learned with the price with the Gezer Shava, first we had established Fashnikit. First we had established Shasuya Yain, and we were learning the Gezer Shava from there, not from Mechusar begadim. So achi comment. This is pshat. Minayin shelo nachlek bein mechusar begadim and shasuya yain v'shelo rachutz yadayim v'raglayim. How do we know that? Look, by mechusar begadim, we know that it's mechal avodah by all of the avodas because we learn it out from that pasuk of v'chagat osam avnei etc. How do we know to apply that also to fashnikit and to somebody didn't do kiddush yadayim v'raglayim? Tam lomar chuka l'gzeir shava. Well, we have this gzeir shava of chuka. So not based on that brisa where we were starting up, where we were learning about fashnikit, but no, we say, look, we established that by mechusar begadim, it's mechal avoda by all of the avodas, and then we have this gzeir shava of chuka to be able to extend that now to fashnikit and to somebody who was not mekadosh yadayim v'raglayim. Now, if that's the case, so if we're learning out everything from the pasuk of v'chagat osam avnei tahar navona v'chazasam migbot v'osam chukas olam, etc., and that's where we learned that mechusar begadim is mechal all of the avodas. And we learned that, and then we extend that to fashnikit, and we extend it to somebody who was not mekadosh yadayim v'raglayim. So why do we b'chlal need this other pasuk of yain v'shecha al teish u'lahabdu ben hakodesh u'ben hachol? We don't need this anymore, really. When we need it for like Rav, the Rav lo mukim amora ole miyom atav l'chav mishum shechus. That Rav on Yom Tif in the afternoon. Right now we have Yom Tif coming up. I'm recording this on Erev Yom Kippur. The night before, the night of Erev Yom Kippur. But right after this is going to be Sukkot. We're going to get Fashnikit. We're going to have a good time. Rav on Yom Tif, after everybody went home from shul and got off Fashnikit, he would not. I guess it sounds like he wouldn't have like a proper halacha shir. Because the pasuk is lahavdu ben hakodesh v'nechol. V'yayin v'shecha atesht u'lahavdu ben hakodesh v'nechol. That when people are fashnikit, we don't want to be teaching a halacha shir in a situation where everybody's fashnikit and you have kodesh and chol, and therefore Rav on the afternoon of Yom Tif, when everybody was already getting fashnikit v'tov lev mishte tomid, so he would not have a proper isser v'eter shir in that situation. Right? He would not have his speaker tell the people what he's saying on Yom Tif until the next day, because people would get fashnikit in the afternoon on Yom Tif, and he didn't want to be giving halacha shir in that context. Okay. Akati me'ocha nafka, but still, one second. Are we learning out mechusar begadim from that pasuk of v'chagai to osam avnei etc.? We learn it out from the pasuk of v'nosnu bnei aharon hakoin The way the pasuk says, I'm reading the pasuk. That the kohanim would make a fire on the mizbeach, and it says v'nosu b'nei Aharon hakohen, the sons of Aharon hakohen. Hakohen b'chihuno. That when it says v'nosu b'nei Aharon hakohen, so it means b'chihuno, when he's wearing his 8 garments. Limit al kohen gadol shalovash b'gdei kohen hedget. That if you have a kohen gadol who's not wearing his garments, but the 4 garments of a kohen hedget, the oven he does avoda so psula. His avoda is psula. He has to be wearing his 8 garments. So we see the Mechusar Kippurim is going to be Mechal Avoda. Right? The Kohen Gadol needs to be wearing his 8 garments. If he's wearing less than that, if he's not wearing his 8 garments, he'll be Mechal Avoda. Well, awesome if we only learned it out from that pasuk. No, if we would only learn it out from the original pasuk, from the pasuk of V'chagai to Osam Abnei, etc. Hava Amira Animile Avoda de Me'akva Kapara. I might think that that's limited to avodas that are ma'akiv the kapara, that if you don't do them, then the person can't get atoned. For example, shchita, kabbalah, holach, azrika, those kinds of avodas. So if a person is lacking, if the kohen is lacking the proper garments when he does those avodas, the avodah is psula. Avodah lo ma'akil kapara lo. But I might think that an avodah such as in this pasuk, which is talking about putting the fire on the mizbeach, technically speaking, Rashi points out there already was a fire on the mizbeach. There's an eish tamid, came from the Rabbanu Shalom. It was already on the mizbeach. Where does Rashi say it? I don't know. But anyways, where am I? Right, that you had a fire already coming down from the Rabbanu Shalom. So the kohanim making a fire on the mizbeach won't be ma'akiv the kapara, and yet still we're saying that if a kohen is not wearing his proper garments, it'll be mechal davoda there as well. But 1 second, what about the following pasuk? I wanted to look this up. I assume that this is talking about a korban olah. I didn't look it up. I assume it's talking about korban olah. And it says that the bnei Aharon HaKohanim, this is talking about the kohanim, not the kohen gadol. The first pasuk says, are talking about bnei Aharon HaKohen. Aharon HaKohen is the kohen gadol. But here it says bnei Aharon HaKohanim, talking about the kohen hedjot. They would put the pieces of the korban on the mizbeach. HaKohanim b'chiunon, when they are wearing their proper garments. Mikan the kohen hedjot, shlovash bigdei kohen gadol, right? They have to wear their garments. The 4 garments of a kohen hedjot. But if you have a kohen hedjot that wears the 8 garments of a kohen gadol, v'avad, and does avodaso psula. So the avodah is psula. So we see from that pasuk that you have to be wearing your proper garmentry. Yeah, but the chiddush of this pasuk is we're saying that a kohen hedjot who does the avodah with the garments of a kohen gadol, he's adding garments. I wouldn't have known that is pasuk. If we only had the other psukim, so those are talking about Mechusar begadim, when you're lacking the proper garments, right? As the first pasuk it said, they'll put on their belt, they'll put on their hat. If they don't have these things, if they're lacking, so then pasuk. How do I know that even if you add garments, for example, kohen hedjot wearing the garments of a kohen gadol, so that's what this pasuk teaches us, right? Kohanim, that kohanim b'chiyunon. But if they are wearing extra garments, then they would be pasuk. If they're wearing the garments of the kohen gadol, they would be pasuk. So the chiddush of this pasuk is that even adding garments is also going to be pasuk, and it's going to be mechal davodah. All right, friends. So now we get up to the next section of the daf. Pant size requirements for kohanim. What do you think about that? The pant size requirements for the kohanim. So Tana, one of the rabbis taught, Ayu mirushalin misulakin mishuchakim vavad avodas ksher. This is important. This is going to be important for the next chunk of the Gemara. That says the brisa. This is important because we're going to see the opinion of Rav and Shmuel, and the Rav and Shmuel are Amoraim, early Amoraim, but they're Amoraim. Here we have a brisa And what the Brisa is saying is important because the Brisa is the Tanoim. It's the Brisa. And they're laying down the law. And we're going to be comparing the opinion of Rav and Shmuel based on this Brisa. And we're going to be checking it against this Brisa. So remember, says this Brisa that Mirushalin is pants that are too long. And Misulakin is what we call flood pants. You have a kohen, he's concerned maybe there's going to be a flood in the Azar, so he pulled up his pants. He has the short version of pants. Mishucha. What was that from? Oh my gosh, where was I? I was walking back. I think I was walking back from a Suda one night. I think I was walking back, maybe it was Rosh Hashanah or something, at night. And I passed these three guys. One of them, he was wearing these short pants. His pants were too short. And then the next guy, his pants, there were like three people together. His pants were even shorter. And then I looked up, and the next guy, he was wearing shorts. It was like, I remember seeing the first guy, I was like, wow, that guy's pants are too short. And then I saw the next guy, I was like, well, his pants are even shorter. I was like, I wonder what I wonder what the next guy's doing. It's like, oh my, this guy's wearing shorts. Whatever. So we said if his pants are too long or too short, or mishuchakim, or if they're worn out. Says the Brisa, and this is important, kosher. According to the Brisa, even if the pants are too long, pants are too short, it is still kosher. If a kohen does the avoda in those pants, the avoda is still kosher. Remember that. Cheve, too long, too short, what's the halacha? According to the Brisa, kosher. And now, however, lova shnei mechmasayim, if you wore two pairs of hoisin, shnei avnetim, two belts, choser achas, yoser achas, or one too many garments, one too little garments, or shoyelo ritia al besar tachas begadol, you could skip the word makas, or he had a bandage on his flesh, under his garment. Let's say, I don't know, he cut his knee or something like that, and now he's got a bandage on his knee, and now in between his flesh and the mechnasayim and the garment and the pants there's a external thing there. There's a bandage in between the pants and his flesh. Under the garment, oshahayu mitushtashin or mikura'in, or the priestly garments were all muddied or torn. In these cases, too many garments, muddy garments, whatever. He's got something in between the garment and his flesh. He's got a bandage on. In all those examples, possible. But remember, if the pants were too long or too short, kosher. Or worn out, but said. Now, Amar Vida Mashmul says, Vida Mashmul, Mirushaling Sharon. Says of Yudah in the name of Shmuel that pants that are too long are kosher, just like the Brisa says. However, Misulakim Psulin, pants that are too short are going to be psulin. Now, but we just learned in the Brisa that pants that are too short are ksherin. Remember by Chome, Lokash says, remember by Chome, no problem. Kan shesilkon ayidei avne kan delesnu me ikara klas. So it says, remember by Chome, no problem. When the Brisa says that pants that are, or how about this? Let's start with Shmuel. When Shmuel says that pants that are too short are pasul, that's because it's literally pants that are too short. They're literally too short. So in that case, pasul. But when the Brisa says that pants that are too short are kosher, the pants are actually, the issue isn't the pants. The pants are the right size. But he somehow pulled them up and tucked them into his belt somehow. He pulled them up higher. So in that case, all of the material is still there. The pants themselves, there's nothing wrong with the pants. He's wearing them in a funny way. But the pants themselves are fine. That's why the Brisa says that they're kosher. But when Shmuel says pasul, it's because the pants aren't fine. They're too short. It is literally, it's like not enough cloth. There's not enough fabric. There's literally the pants are too short. Now, what's important to point out, because Rav is going to disagree with this concept. What's important to point out is essentially what Shmuel is saying, is that when you have pants that are the right size, but you pull them up and tuck them into your belt, they're still considered the right size. Meaning we don't consider it that, well, if you pull it up and now they're too short, it's as if the extra fabric is gone, and it's literally as if the pants are too short. No. According to Shmuel, if you pull up if the pants themselves are long enough and you just pull them up so they look like they're too short, but they actually aren't, that's fine. We're going to see in a second that Rav says that isn't fine. Those would be considered too short. We'll get there in a second, but what I want to point out for Shmuel is that Shmuel says, look, so long as the pants are technically long enough, even if you pull them up so that they're too short, they're still going to be kosher. Whereas Rav Omer Echad Zev Echad Zev Psulin, now Rav actually says that pants that are too long are psulin. Pants that are too short are psulin, which is tricky because the Bryce had literally said the opposite. Pants that are too long, pants that are too short are ksherin. So we have to now understand Rav's opinion. Rav Huna, Ikla le Argiza. Rav Huna visited a place called Argiza. Ramalei bar Ushpischone, and the son of his host, right? So Rav Huna was visiting Argiza, and his host's son asked him, Mi Omer Shmuel, Mirushalim Ksherit, Muslakim Sulim. Does Shmuel really say that while long pants that are too long are ksherin, like the Brisa says, but pants that are too short are apostle, ve'atani misulakin ksherin, but the Brisa had said pants that are too short are ksherin. Amalei, Rav Huna says, look, that's not really the right question to ask, because Barmina de'ayid, the Shani Ram Brachama, look, Ram Brachama already answered that. Ram Brachama already answered that. That the Brisa which says kosher is talking about that the pants themselves were the right size, but they were pulled up, fine. But if they're too short, then they're apostle. Now, at Rav Kash, but the question really is on Rav. What's the deal with Rav? Rav had said that pants that are too long are psulin, pants that are too short are psulin. My mirushalin misulakin al yidei avneit ve'avneit megiz ogiz el misulakin kasha. But if you want to answer that, well, the brisa that says that when pants are too long they're kosher. So in the brisa it's talking about when they were pulled up and tucked into the belt. So meaning, if you're going to say, okay, so what Rav is saying is that when pants are too long, they're apostle. That's when they're literally too long. But if you pull them up, so now they're the right size, so they're kosher. And that's what the Bryce is talking about. The Bryce is saying that when you have pants that are too long, but they're pulled up, so now they're the right size, then they're kosher. But the thing is, that's the opposite of what Shmuel said, because according to Rav, what we're saying is that so long as you pull them up and now they're the right size, what about all the extra fabric that's being stuffed under the belt? We don't care. It's as if it's not there. So if you have pants that are too long, but you pull them up, so now they look fine, that's fine. The extra fabric is gone. We don't consider it like it's there. So again, if you're going to say, my Merushalin, in the Brisa, when it says Merushalin, that the pants are too long, and it's nonetheless kosher, Misulak and Aidei Avnid, it's because you pulled them up, so now they're the right size, and you tuck the extra fabric into the belt. Vavnid megas ogis, and by tucking it into the belt, it makes it as if the extra fabric is cut off. But Elam Misulakin kasher. But if that's the case, then Rav says that pants that are too short are possible, but the Brisa says that they're kosher. How would the Brisa say that they are? In what case would they be kosher? Because if Rav says that stuffing them under the belt, it's as if the fabric isn't there at all, well then, even if there's enough fabric, but they're pulled up too high, it would be possible because we'll treat it like the fabric is gone. So, Amar Reb Zera Rav Chada Tani. So, Reb Zera says, look, according to Rav, the Bryce is just saying one thing. It's not saying that pants that are too long are kosher, pants that are too short are kosher. No, it's not saying that. It's saying one thing. If you have, what the Bryce is saying is that if you have pants that are too long, the kohen has pants that are too long, but they're pulled up, so now they're the right size, they're ksher, because we'll treat the fabric as if it's not there. But if you keep on pulling it up, so now it's too short, even though all the fabric is there, it's going to be puzzle, because again, when you pull it up, we treat the fabric like it's not there. Shmuel disagreed and says that when you pull it up, we treat the fabric like it is there. But Rav says that we treat the fabric like it's not there. So now we actually tie this in. Now we actually tie this in to a discussion about tzitzis. Tie it in to tzitzis. Let's say that long pants that have not been lifted up, the pants that they're just left to be too long. So let's say that whether that's going to be kosher or pasul is actually machlokas tanoim. When you have pants that are too long, tanoi, let's say it's taka machlokas tanoim. The Tana, the blender brisa al arba kanfis ksuscho, that the pasuk says by tzitzis, that tzitzis are in the four corners of your garment. Arba v'lo shalish, a four-cornered garment, not a three-cornered garment. Maybe what it means is that a four-cornered garment, but not a five-cornered garment. The pasuk says that you cover yourself in harei bailas chomesh omer, that is coming to include even a five-cornered garment. That a garment with extra corners. Keep in mind, right, the big dekuna that are too long has extra fabric, right? Extra fabric. Here there's extra corners. We're saying that still you would put tzitzis on it. So Hamani Mekayim, you would put tzitzis, I guess, I think on 4 of the 5 corners. Hamani Mekayim Arba v'lo shalosh. When it says 4, it means 4 and not 3. And how do we know that when it says 4 to the exclusion of, it's to the exclusion of 3 and not to the exclusion of 5? So my banim bailas chomesh, because I will include a 5-cornered garment, sheish b'chal chomesh arba, because tzitzis is for a 4-cornered garment. Once you have 4 corners, so the chiyuv of tzitzis is triggered, and at that point, even if you have an extra corner there, you've already triggered the mitzvah of tzitzis, and therefore you'll be chayiv even for a 5-cornered garment. Umotzeani ba'al shalosh, to the exclusion of a 3-cornered garment. She'ei mechal shalosh arba, 4 is not included in 3. I.e., you haven't reached the tzitzis threshold. Tzitzis has never been triggered. So we see in this brisa that the chiyuv of tzitzis is on a 4-cornered garment, not on a 3-cornered garment. But interestingly, a 5-cornered garment would still be chayiv in tzitzis. And what's interesting here, right, what we're going to want to argue here is that we're basically ignoring the extra corner there. Because if we take it to consider, if we say it's a 5-cornered garment, well, 5-cornered garments aren't chayiv in tzitzis. So meaning we're going to reject it. But the idea that we're going for here is that we're ignoring the extra fabric, we're ignoring the extra corner. We have another brisa. Al arba kanfis ksuscho, that tzitzis are in a 4-cornered garment. Arba v'lo shalosh, arba v'lo chomesh. That it's a 4-cornered garment to the exclusion of a 3-cornered garment, and also to the exclusion of a 5-cornered garment. So my la ba'akamiflage, let's say the machlokas is the ma'asavar yoser keman de'isei dami, that the second brisa, which says a 4-cornered garment, not a 3-cornered garment, not a 5-cornered garment, is because the 5-cornered garment is keman de'isei dami. We see you, 5th corner. And therefore, this is a 5-cornered garment, it's not a 4-cornered garment, and it's pater from tzitzis. Whereas the first brisa says, meh. We don't care about we don't see the 5th corner. It's a 4-cornered garment. It's chayiv in tzitzis. Low. No, that's not the reason. The first brisa literally said the reason why a fifth garment, a five-cornered garment, is included in tzitzis? Because it says asher tchasa olav. And we said it includes a five-corner garment, not a three-corner garment, because three-corner garment is never chayv. It hasn't yet reached the threshold for tzitzis. Look, everyone sees the fifth corner. It's there. The pasuk says, they'll cover yourself in, which comes to include even a fifth corner garment, as we discussed earlier. The second brisa, which says that a five-corner garment is potter from tzitzis. So what does the second brisa learn from Asher Tchase Olav? Prat. So in Tanya, it's needed for the following brisa. Urisim also prat l'chsus laila. Then when the pasuk says urisim also, you have to see the tzitzis. Prat l'chsus laila to the exclusion of a nighttime garment, because you don't see a nighttime garment. Wait, maybe urisim also means that the garment of a blind person who can't see is potter from tzitzis. Well, the pasuk of Asher Tchasa Olav is coming. Asher Tchasa Ba is coming to include the garment of a blind person, and the reason also is to exclude a nighttime garment. Hamani Mekayim Urisem also Pradlachsus Lad, and therefore Urisem also. So Asher Tchasa Olav includes the garment of a blind person, and Urisem also excludes the garment, a nighttime garment. Umar Isa Lirabis Ksus Sumulotzi Ksus Lala. How come you made this decision? How come Asher Tchasa Olav includes the Ksus Suma and excludes Ksus Laila? I'll tell you why. My Ba'ani Ksus Suma, I'll include the Ksus Suma Sheyeshna B'Re'iyah Eitzel Acherim. The reason why Ksusuma is included in this is because other people can see it. He can't see it, but others can. It is a seeable garment. Umotzi ani ksuslaila, to the exclusion of a nighttime garment. Nobody's going to see it. It's a nighttime garment. You wear it at night, people don't see it. You wear it in your house, maybe. It's not a garment that people are going to be seeing. Therefore, it's potter from tzitzis v'idach nafkale me asher. And according to the first brisa, which learned out that a five-cornered garment is chayv in tzitzis from Asher Tchasa Ba, how does he learn out that a ksusuma is chayv in tzitzis? From Asher. Okay, the word Asher includes that. V'idach Asher l'darish. Whereas the second brisa doesn't learn from Asher; it learns out from Asher Tchasa Ba that ksusuma is chayv in tzitzis. But a five-cornered garment, according to the second brisa, would be potter from tzitzis. And now, to wrap up Daf 18 of Daf Yudches of Masechta Zevachim, well, we still have some work to do, but the final section of clothing materials for kohanim. Turn Rabbanan the Rabbi start, Bad sheyiyu shel boats. Okay, right, the pasuk says, V'asa v'aseh loim michnasei bad. Chazes v'arvosim. Fine. So bad is linen, bad you chadoshim, and bad that they should be new. Okay, bad you shazurim, they should be spun. Bad you chuten kofel shisha, they should be spun with 6 threads in each thread. Bad shel yilbash shel chol imoin, bad like levad, they should be alone. There shouldn't be other garments with them. Where am I? Fine. Of Yosef. If I says of Yosef, b'shlomash you shall boats. I understand why we say that they should be linen. Boats in midachin alo. What it's teaching is they should be linen, right? The garments of the kohanim need to be made out of linen, not out of any other material. Ela bad you chadoshim in shchakim lo. But when we say that bad, we learn out from the word bad that the garments of a priest need to be new, implying that what? Worn out garments are possible. We learn in the brisa that we learned earlier with the long pants and the short pants, mishuchakim ksherin, that worn out pants are ksherin. So how can we learn out from bad that they have to be new if we're saying that worn out ones are ksherin? So Rav Yosef says, look, according to you, bad shuchut and kofel shisha, bad chad lechude mashma. 1 second. Abai, if you think about it, we had also said that Bad teaches that each thread needs to be composed of 6 threads. But if you think about it, Bad really, for learning it out from Bad actually means live, right? Bad bebad, individual, not made up of 6 threads. So Ella rather, this is pshat, begadims shenemar boen bad, the garments about which it says that they need to be made out of linen, the linen garments. So tzrichin shu shabots chadashim shizurin echuten kaful shisha yesh ben the mitzvah yesh ben lakin. That it's not saying that we're learning out all of these things from bad and that they're all deoraisa. No, what it's saying is that the garments of which we said that they need to be bad, so those garments need to be linen, they need to be new, they need to be spun with 6 threads, and so of those requirements, some of them are mamish, like even b'di'evid, they're mamish requirements, but some of them are lichatchila. Being new is an example of a lichatchila one, but technically if they're worn out, they would still be kosher. Bad kitanu. How do we know that bad is cotton? Rav Yosef, Rav Chanino, dover ola min akarka bad bibad. Bad is cotton because it's did I say cotton? I meant linen. It's linen because linen grows from the ground, I guess, one stalk at a time. Ema imra, I'll say wool, because wool grows from the sheep, one wool thingy at a time. Mifatzel, so imra mifatzel. Yeah, no, but wool splits. Wool hairs. Can you say hairs of wool? Wool hairs? Why not? They split. Kitana nami mifatzel. I did mifatzel, but flax also splits. I did lakusa mifatzel. Yeah, but it only splits when you hit it. It won't just kind of split on its own. Ravina Amar Me'ach, Ravina says from here, this is how we know that they need to be linen. Pari pishtim. You are Rosh. The Apostle says in Yechezkel that on their head they should have these hats of linen. Umichna say pishtim. You all must name. They'll be wearing linen pants. Le'ach grubiyaza. They can't be yach grubiyaza. Well, in what that is in a few lines from now. So here's this pasuk in Yechezkel, which is actually being pretty explicit what the materials of the bidei kuna are, and they are linen. What, you're saying that we learn it out from this pasuk in Yechezkel? What did they do in the Mishnah? What did they do in the Beis HaMikdash until Yechezkel was around? But did they just not know what it was made out of? How can we learn it out from that pasuk in Yechezkel? And Ravina responds, and according to you, Hadamar Rav Chizda, that which Rav Chizda's davar zeh, mitoris Moshe Rabbeinu lo lamanu, midivrei Yechezkel ben Buzi lamanu. The following halacha we didn't learn from explicitly from our Torah. We learned it out from a pasuk in Yechezkel called Ben Necher Arolev Arobasu Leyavu El Mikdashi. That any kohen who's like a Ben Necher, he does averis and things. Barobasor, he doesn't have bris milah Leyavu El Mikdashi. Right, so whether he's like, I guess, like a mummer, somebody does a veris, or somebody doesn't have bris milah, he can't serve in the Beis HaMikdash. Achaba Yechezkel minol. And how did we know this until Yechezkel came around? Ella, Gemara Gemir Lava Also Yechezkel v'Asmechekra. Look, we already knew this. Halachal Moshe Misina that in oral, somebody without a bris milah doesn't serve in the Beis HaMikdash. We already knew it was Halachal Moshe Misina. We knew it. Came Yechezkel and he wrote a pasuk for that which we already knew from tradition. Hachanami here as well. Gemara Gemirila v'chule. Here as well, we already had a tradition that the clothing were made out of linen, but here Yechezkel was explicit about it. Maliachgu b'yaza. What does it mean liachgu b'yaza? Amar Abai liachgu b'makom shemaziyin. They shouldn't wear their belts probably in a place where they sweat. They shouldn't tie their belt, not beneath their loins, nor beneath their armpits. These are sweaty places. Ella, kineged asile yedein, rather in your mid-range, mid-section, midriff, I don't know, somewhere in between where it's not shvitzi. Amr Vashi, says Vashi, Amli Huna Bar Nosen told me, Zimnachada Avaka Imna Kamede is Gidar Malka, says Huna Bar Nosen. One time I was by the Persian king Izgidar. Vava Madle Li Emyonai, and my belt was too high. Vitisye Niale V'Omerli, and he lowered my belt for me, and he said to me, Mamleches Kohanim V'Goy Kodosh Ksiv B'chu. Look, the pasuk says about you that you are a kingship of priests and a holy nation. You know, you should dress properly, make sure that your belt is proper, is in the right place, so you look good. I guess it is probably Huna Bar Nosen saying, when I came for Amemar Amli, he said to me, wow. He was amazed. He says, wow. The king of Persia just fixed your appearance for you and said, look, Mamleches Kohanim V'Goy Kadosh Ksiv B'chu. Amemar was wowed, and he said, that what just happened was we experienced the pasuk of that kings will be your, I guess, nurses, will be taking care of you. That was Daf Yud Ches of Masechta Zevachim. On Daf Yud Ches, we learned about Mechusar begadims during Kabolas Hadam. That was kind of the main real sugya of today's, the main focus of today's daf was how do we know that when the Mishnah says that a Mechusar begadim, somebody who's not wearing the proper priestly garments, is possible from doing avodas hadam, and if he does Kabolas Hadam, he will be mechal avodah. How do we know that? So that was kind of the focus of the first part. I mean, it's the focus of today's daf begados. How do we know mechusar begadim is mechal avodah? And then we talked about the pant size requirements for kohanim. We saw machlokas or different perspectives between Rav and Shmuel. Shmuel says when you yank up your pants, all the fabric is still considered like it's there. Rav says it's considered like it's gone, which then got us into an interesting discussion about tzitzis and 5-cornered garments on tzitzis. A machlokas of, is a 5-cornered garment chayiv in tzitzis or not? I think the halacha is that it would be chayiv in tzitzis, but I think you would only put tzitzis on 4 of them. And finally, clothing materials for kohanim. We said that they are made out of linen, be'etzim. That was Daf Yud Ches of Masechta Zevachim. Hope you enjoy. Peace.